about self-care, which you can see right here. I'm really excited because I love self-care. You've probably heard me talk about it before, just because I'm very passionate about this topic. So when Roseanne told me that I could present on it, I was pretty stoked. Except for self-care is a huge, huge topic. So trying to narrow it down into an hour or an hour and a half. It's very difficult, especially because I love this topic, and I just wanted to keep you here all day, basically. But I'm not, so yeah. And we're going to do different things. So I'm going to talk about self-care for a little bit, then we're going to do kind of group activities within your teams, and then we're going to do a self-care exercise to kind of engage you. So it's not going to be me just talking for an hour and a half, which sounds horrible. So before we kind of get into self-care, I want to kind of recap a little bit from when we talked about trauma stewardship a couple of weeks ago. Because trauma stewardship and self-care is very related. And when we ended a couple of weeks ago, we kind of left off with the idea that self-care was great, but then we didn't go past that because we didn't have time. So I kind of wanted to put up a few of the warning signs that we talked about with trauma exposure. Can anybody remember what trauma stewardship is? Trauma stewardship is how we manage trauma that we're exposed to. It can be our personal trauma or trauma from other people that we live with or work with, such as adults. So trauma stewardship is kind of how we respond to the trauma that we're exposed to in different ways. And the warning signs that we talked about, just kind of what we can try and recognize in ourselves, to be aware of because of the negative impacts of trauma in our lives. So we covered 16 of them, but I just put a few up here to kind of help refresh your memory. We talked about feeling hopeless and hopeless, decreased creativity, chronic exhaustion, just being tired all the time, guilt, fear, anger, inability to empathize, and different addictions. Okay? And these are just a few. There were 16 that we talked about, but I wanted to bring these up just so you can kind of have an idea of what we're talking about when we talk about self-care and why self-care is so important. Because when we work with girls who've been traumatized and we're kind of bringing in our own experiences as well, we can be negatively impacted by that trauma significantly. And it's really important to kind of know what those warning signs are so we can actually be proactive so they don't lead to burnout or just completely leaving the field at all. So being aware of what the warning signs are is really important for self-care so that we can actually do something about it. And then at the end of the session, so we didn't leave it completely discouraging, we kind of talked about steps. And so these were just kind of a few strategies that we went through. So being able to build resistance or resilience within ourselves will have great impact on the trauma that we're exposed to. So in order to build resilience, some of the things that we can look at is maintaining flexible schedule and balance in our lives, allowing ourselves to experience emotions. It's very easy when we're overwhelmed by emotions to just block all of them out. So being able to just give yourself permission to feel the emotions will be amazing because it's the first step that you need to actually doing something about them. Pay attention to your needs. This can be personal or professional. So whether, are you getting enough sleep? What is your eating habit like? Are you not seeking medical attention?
They're obvious.
I won't look at what you're eating right now. Because whenever you're dipping it in, I can smell it.
I know.
How to keep yourself healthy, and that's kind of what we'll talk about later on with kind of developing a self-care plan. Nurturing a positive view of yourself, so it's having self-respect, admiring what you're doing, loving yourself, things like that. I mean, just having a positive view of yourself will impact the way that you live your life, the way that you present yourself to other people, and how you handle different circumstances. Keep things in perspective, maintain a hopeful outlook, and make connections with other people. And this is something that we'll talk about because it's really important as well.
The last one?
Yeah, making connections. And I mean, we already have that here as well. We have a pretty close community with each other as staff members, and that's a huge benefit for us. It really helps debriefing, brainstorming. I mean, it helps with a lot of different things that we kind of deal with professionally and personally. So a stress-resistant person is someone who has a sense of personal control. So they believe that they actually have the capacity to influence their own lives. They don't feel as though other people are taking control. It's actually like, oh, I actually have the decision-making power to influence what I do, whether it's here, at another job, whatever. Pursuit of pursuing meaningful tasks, so that they're present and engaged in their lives. And this is something we'll talk about as well, just kind of being focused and being mindful of kind of like day-to-day activities instead of focusing on other things that we don't have control of. Healthy lifestyle choices. Eat healthy, exercise, but also just taking time to rest and relax. Absolutely, I think this is crucial. The social support again, they have relationships with others who serve as a buffer in dealing with difficult situations. So kind of taking, do you have any questions first? Any questions?
The social support.
So kind of going into this.
Ay, katawa sa'yo. Bakit social support sa'yo?
Workers, friends, church mates are the best opportunities for social support. Okay, so we're going to go through today just like the 5 practices that we can kind of engage in to look at if we are experiencing some warning signs, but also to look at like what we can do to prevent negative impact. So this is kind of what I stuck with just because there is so much information available that these 5 practices are kind of they're listed in the book, Trauma Stewardship, and they're kind of a good place to start. I really encourage you to just do your own kind of research in self-care, and I can be a resource for that. But I just kind of wanted to give you the foundation that you can kind of build other things on. The first practice is to ask yourself questions. So be honest about yourself. Be honest with yourself about why you're currently engaged in this work. Ask yourself, who am I and what am I doing here? It's very easy when we get caught up in our work, trying to achieve goals, trying to work for the mission. It's very easy to kind of forget about why we're actually here. Especially in the helping profession. We help others for a living. And so it can be very difficult to actually look at what we want and what we need in our own lives. So really asking yourself, why do you do this work? It's really, really important. With Peace Corps, it's a huge question they actually ask us. So my first 3 months in the Philippines in training, my program manager grilled into all of us of why are you here? Having your why is incredibly important because it will, having your why provides meaning for your job. It provides meaning for your life. It provides direction and stability for what you're doing and confidence in what you're doing. Because if you don't have your why, maybe you should be looking for another why and something else. I have a lot of why I'm here. I love working with you all. I've grown in my job here. I feel like I've been able to have an impact, even if it's in just kind of small doses. And I feel like I've professionally developed. So I have a lot of whys for being here, which means that I've never thought about going home. But if I didn't have those whys, then I don't know if I would still be here. And a lot of volunteers that came in with me are no longer here. We've lost about a fourth of our batch. But that doesn't mean that they weren't good volunteers. Their why wasn't grounded in what they were doing. And for them to go home, it was the best choice for them because then they could search for a job that actually fits their own personal mission and values. Okay? So having this why and asking yourself these questions is really important for the work that you do, whether it's here or anywhere. The other one is to choose a focus. So in every moment, we decide where to place our attention. It is always up to us. We can change our lives by reframing our experiences. So a lot of our focus, especially when things aren't going the way that we planned, a lot of our focus is in the way that it hasn't gone planned. Okay? By reframing that and being able to kind of see the positive and maybe kind of think, do you understand the term reframe? Does that make sense? Reframing is looking at a situation in a different way. Yeah, kind of like a different lens. Think of a better way.
I think the same thing with the strength-based approach. Like, this is the situation. You don't think, you mo tanawa ng sitwasyon, you will say ang pagkaniya. Like, you will naman go beyond that. So, for example, damo ang hanap na kanon na dagan siya, na-fail siya, dagan siya chance niya, na-fail na po siya. Kung diretso ka na, wala man siya pag-asa nila bata, pero kung mo siya i-reframe siya is, it can be an opportunity para kang na dali gini para sa iya ha. Maybe another magiging opportunity po din na yung pwede mo, dili ang education, pwede nga haba. So, ang seeing a different picture from the same situation.
Yeah, and that kind of, when you're talking about the strength space, I mean, when you practice being present in the moment and focusing on something that's intentionally good, or intentionally focusing on your resources and your strengths, whether those are personal or such as your personal skills to lead. It could be a resource of family members or other connections. It could even be a resource of good memories. So whenever you're able to kind of be in the present moment and focus and change your focus and reframe it, you can build on skills that will help you care for yourself when you feel stressed. Okay? When you kind of live in this world that's more negative and you're not focusing on your strengths, but your weaknesses, you're not actually building skills. It's only when you're focusing on things that you're good at, right, that we've talked about in strength days, and you're actually able to build skills within yourself that are in tune with what you're already good at. So when you build these skills, they'll have an amazing impact on how you deal with the stress or even the trauma around you. Does that make sense? Okay, the third one is to build compassion and community. So our community, kind of what we talked about earlier, our community is our social supports, okay? It's our families, friends, co-workers, people at church. And this community, or our social supports, they are there for two reasons, okay? They're there to encourage us and to lift us up, but also to hold us accountable, okay? Which can be the really tricky aspect of having really close community. A lot of times, I mean, it's much, much easier to encourage someone than to actually hold them accountable for different things, okay? But this is what a good community looks like. It's the people that we laugh with, cry with, brainstorm with, and become better people with, okay? If your community does not look like this, which I suggest that you evaluate the community of people that you're around, because if they're not encouraging you and holding you accountable, if they're not people that you do these things with, then I suggest you look for other people to include in your community. I mean, it sounds harsh, and I'm not saying to just like completely get rid of these people. This sounds harsh, but these are our social supports. If they're not supporting us, then they shouldn't be in our inner realm of people that we laugh with, try to become better people with. Okay? So if your social supports aren't matching with this, I really suggest looking for people that encourage you and hold you accountable. Because these are the people that you will become a better person by being around. Okay? As we soak up the benefits from a community that is both loving and willing to hold us accountable, we're experiencing compassion in action. Okay? So by being a part of these communities that are rooted in encouragement and accountability, we are living in a compassionate way, right? If we were only encouraging them, that's an acquaintance, right? But if they're actually holding you accountable, that is where compassion comes in. Because they're actually wanting the best for you, and they're going to do something about it. That is compassion. And by having this, you're able to actually be compassionate with other people as well. That might not actually fit this bill, but they're not in your inner sanctum. Okay? Do you have any questions or comments about this? What do you think?
Yeah, accountability would include rebuking someone.
Yeah, I see accountability kind of what we even do here with the guidance of grace. So it's kind of helping other people recognize that maybe they're not staying in tune with their own goals or with the goals of God, or however your friendship is kind of defined in that way. Yeah. Anybody?
I think it's also good, Rachel, na kita mo friends or community na hindi ka mo ang or namin pinasa. Talaga ni, hindi ka mo ang sources of encouragement, and again, should you receive local. If, for example, for this kind of job, very stressful niya, gawas ko yun yung mga friends or yung mukhang kaila kay stressful na kayo, so ang instead na ma-fuel ka lang matubigan, imuhang lawas pa o encouragement, open noon nga, ikaw lang po ang hatag sa upan, so walay way na ikaw ang receive. So make sure na healthy relationships yung ginakuan, gina-build with outside.
Living in an isolated way is not how I think we were created to live anyway. I mean, the first church in the New Testament, what was highlighted about them was that they gathered together, they shared resources, and they lived in community. And I think that is God's vision for us, to live in our own community, and how we interpret that now. And I think we each kind of have different interpretations of what community means to us. But finding your community that has these is crucial, I mean, just for you personally, but it's really, really important for self-care and for being able to manage the trauma inside you. Because if you don't have people to share that experience and trauma with, it's not going to be good.
Can I give an example, Rachel? So for example, di ba, elementary, high school, kita ko mga friends ko, hindi masulod ka mo. Pero I don't know sa inyo pero sa akong own experience, karon kay, hindi masulod. Manubra na ako ang tudlo kung gusto nga mga tao, para sa akong ginatreat yun, ang close kay sa kuha nga, makadepend yun ko. So, meaning na ang inyo po, ang relationship ko, doon ang ginatrato niyo ang community from elementary hanggang karon na edad, mag-change po siya, depende sa inyo ha, mature, di ba? So, more mature na relationship. And I think part po na siya na kayo, ikaw mamili ka magkatugayan mo, malita puros laag, kaya kung tao nga, makatag ko yung support, so nung kabantay mo, ako kasi yung friendly na po tayo mo, pero katod yung tao nga una-una siya bang tag-isa, mag-itay ng mga tao, hindi mo maingat. So, kaya na siya. Dahil lang si muna-una, pero kung mo ganito, ako nag-dugal,
Saan ka po?
Ha? I remember yung training dito, bago pa lang sa Italia, na you let us make yung circle, in our circle. And when I think about yung mga friends ko, parang hindi ko na sila in our circle. Konti lang pa, konti pa sa in our circle. Parang yung ko lang ma-realize, akala mo, ay parang ako inner circle, pero pag mag-meet down ka na, mag-realize mo, na-realize na ako, konti lang, pero konti lang. Na-realize na ako kaya pag-prepare sa akong kasal, prepare na ako kaya, tulo na ka ba kung kinahanglan ng friends me, kasi ko yung mabuta. Kaya murag, gamay na kayo, ako pinagkawala din ka na mas ano ka, so, yan na. You choose to don't kinsay mo mga tao na, you can, hindi na pwede nga mo, sige na mag-laugh with, di ba? Mag-laugh with, drive with, ugot with, that's the way.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like it can even mean, when a friend of yours is having just like a bad day, and it's not something where you can like sit down and have a deep conversation. Being accountable can also just be asking them like if they've done self-care that day, and just keeping them accountable with their self-care, even if you aren't in a situation where you can go into a lot of depth and discussion with them. So even just finding small ways to keep people that are closest to you accountable and also encouraging them will be good for both of you. Okay, finding balance. Gratitude is a huge one for finding balance, and this goes back to also kind of your focus and your mindset. So gratitude, locating something to be thankful for at all times is an essential part of accomplished leadership. When we look at the warning signs for trauma and how that impacts us, a lot of those warning signs are a result of looking at negative situations. Okay? So being hopeless or hopeless, feeling guilty, feeling fearful, all of the warning signs are a result of not all of them. I mean, everybody experiences things in different ways. But you have kind of a background of a negative perspective, okay? So finding balance, gratitude is the best place to start because it completely reframes the situation, okay? So, I was going to say something that I can't remember it. It's along the other side. I'll just say. I couldn't remember. The last two were kind of similar. But I mean, gratitude is like the grateful jar. Do you want to kind of say something in kind of how the grateful jar has been kind of a good addition and why that's helped?
So sa grateful jar, nag-encourage sila na within the day, kung saan makita nila na positive, isa doon nakikita sa colorful na butterfly, na wala nila yung hapon. So, tanan ito, mga pagpasalamat yun. So, karon kay, from Rachel's kanang idea ba na kanang sa grateful jar, dapat na-itin every day. Because si Jira man ang kuan, ana, ang facilitator, so i-encourage na mo siya na mag-itin every day kung kinsa akong pagpasalamatan para mahimo siyang intentional kaayo sa usap-usan ako. So, kanang isahay ko si Jira na sa may pasalamatan sa i-share na scripture sa kuan, sa nag-iit sa devotion, sa words sa Ginoo, sa imong pasalamatan ato. Ug sa pasalamatan ko sa nag-ikot sa imong left, sa nag-ikot sa imong right, and kuan. I think kuan, at the very end of this training, we'll have to write a grateful kuan, a grateful note to the girls. So, isa nato siguro siguro random lang na kuan lang pasalamat sa lahat sa itong pasalamatan sa prayer partners or prayer partners or nagbati ang activity siguro. So, yes, I'm grateful for na within the day or anak ng tao sa mga mapasalamat. Pag-aanda rin ang pagpasalamat, constant na order ng negative portion na positive niya. Pero gani kay sa mga activities pa sa education kay kung sila yung department na before they start, they will get an entry to set the ambience na ready siya pag-go.
And if you completely take something that's either dull or discouraging or just no interest whatsoever in the day, and it can completely turn around the entire circumstance. Finding something to be thankful for, I think, is key. Working with trauma stewardship. And one of the suggestions is at the beginning and end of your workday, take a distinct moment to think of one thing that you're grateful for. In the slogan, it says, "Give thanks in all circumstances, for it is God's will for you in Christ Jesus." Jesus kind of went through one of the most traumatic circumstances ever by being crucified. So I feel like if he's telling us to be thankful in all circumstances, I feel like this is something that we should actually be taking to heart because it's really serious. Because it's so easy to kind of look at different situations and just find the negative in it. I think it's part of culture today, not anywhere specific, but I think it's just kind of a part of our culture that when something happens, we can immediately think of what went wrong, why did it go wrong. We kind of focus on the negative aspects of that circumstance, which isn't necessarily bad, but if you leave out the things to be grateful for or the things to be thankful for in that circumstance, you're missing the better half of what happened. Can you think of a time, can someone give an example of like when something negative happened, but by thinking or being thankful for something in that circumstance, it kind of helped kind of reframe the situation? Can you think of anything? So put down.
I think it's one thing also na learn ako sa admiration. Every time na nakita ko, because I was taught to think of the positive things. Like, kung na ako mistakes, nga, kuan na yun na ang either akong supervisor or sila Miss Rose na dili ako ang judge, dili ako ang mistakes, ang ako ang action. So, mo po na siya ako ang one thing nga ako na-learn nga. Every time na may mga challenges, mukha na bitaw ka nga, well, ang challenge, dili naman yun na siya mo. Hindi na siya forever. So, ano ba? Kanang finding bitaw, kanang katatamingon ni Rachel nga, kanang reframing pod nga, possible nga, nakay ma-learn ani nga difficulties, o na niya. Instead of seeing the difficulties, you see the lesson out of the difficulties. Just being thankful.
Okay, and our last practice is being able to center yourself. Okay? So it's finding a balance in your life so that, like, no matter what comes at you, you're actually able to kind of stand your ground without just like being blown everywhere. Okay? So create an intention for your day. So a daily intention you focus on a mood or an action. So it's coming into work and being like, okay, today, even though my morning was horrible, today I'm going to look at every positive interaction with somebody that I can. I'm going to go up to somebody as soon as I get there and have a conversation, completely kind of help my day get better. Because I know that the horrible start does not mean that it has to last throughout the entire day. Okay? So it's creating an intention every day of how you want the day to go, no matter kind of what has happened to you. Okay? It's being intentional about how you live your life. Okay? So it's cultivating moments of mindfulness. We get so busy trying to finish programs or finish manuals or finish a number of different things, class curriculums, that it's very, very easy for us in our busyness to just not be mindful of what's happening to us in that moment. So creating or cultivating moments of mindfulness is being able to kind of stop what you're doing when you feel yourself getting stressed or overworked. Being able to stop, being able to calm yourself down, and being able to be mindful of what you're experiencing, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and so forth. Okay? So this can be setting something on your phone like every hour or something like that. So when it dings, you just kind of take a break, you take a moment. It could even be your act of mindfulness. It can be a small prayer. Thank you for this job. Thank you for this project that I'm working on, even though it's driving me crazy. It can be just like small moments of being mindful of what you're doing, but also being thankful for it, even though it might not be what you want to be doing. Okay. And developing a daily practice. So whether we root ourselves in meditation, cooking, prayer, playing an instrument, or walking, a daily practice can lay the foundation for a healthy lifestyle, resistance to stress. An example of this is part of my self-care. It's something I do every day. So I do what some people call a self-care power hour. So every morning from 6 to 7, I take that time just to do things that cultivate my body, my mind, my soul, or whatever. So some things that I do during that hour could be listening to a sermon, reading my devotion, doing stretches, writing in my prayer journal. It's just things that cultivate me, bring me joy, and help center me for the day. Okay, it's a daily practice that builds the foundation for what's beyond here. And being able to kind of have this pattern is amazing. I've always been horrible at actually making patterns. But being able to develop this was, empowering for me because it's probably the first one I've ever created. But past that, the benefits have been amazing because it's helped kind of live for the day, but it's also helped my relationship with God grow exponentially. So it's finding that when I stayed up late and got up later, that my time was used more for like watching movies or something like that. But if I got up earlier instead, I was much more productive and was able to focus much more on my relationship with God and things that actually fed me. So switching my time pattern was rough, as some of you may know. There was a lot of very tired mornings. But now that I've gotten into the pattern of it, it's been amazing. Just kind of being able to start my day in a way that's gratifying, that gives me time to be mindful, time to be thankful, and so forth. And it's great. So that's just kind of an example of what you can do to kind of develop a daily practice. Like I said, you can be walking or cooking, other forms of prayer, meditation. There's a lot of different things that you can do, but developing a daily routine of it is really, really helpful for your own self-care because it's time that you intentionally take every day that you know that you're going to do at a certain time. And something about that is really incredibly empowering and incredibly effective. So I definitely recommend, I obviously recommend all of these, or else I won't be fine. I've seen really great impacts from this just recently. So yeah, do you guys have any questions or comments before we go to the next section? No? You can still ask me about that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to give you is a self-care assessment and just kind of a small little one. It's not going to take very long. Don't get worried or stressed. But I want you to take a few minutes to fill it out individually, and then I want you to meet within your teams to kind of surprised you with the assessment? What are you doing well, and what do you want to work on in the future? And then again, going back to accountability, your team should be there to kind of help keep you accountable in your own self-care goals. Which is why you're going to talk about your self-care goals now, so that they actually have something to keep you accountable for. Okay? So I'm going to get these out. So fill them out first, and then you can shuffle around and get to the end. So the first part is the assessment, and then on the second page, we just have examples of different like daily self-care